Hi there, guys, and welcome to episode 1 of Rick and Pete. So, we started this new series where every month me and Rick do a podcast. And in this podcast, we don't have a plan, we don't have a topic. We just talk about the things that are exciting to us at the time, thoughts that we've been thinking, interesting thoughts, and new ways of thinking, or things that have been working for us, things that haven't been working for us, and just having a conversation about life, spirituality, and ways to move through these. And today's episode is quite action packed. We've got a lot of topics for you. We've got how our partners in relationship can be a catalyst to bring out the best in us. We talk about death. We talk about religion. We talk about consciousness and the evolution of it. We talk about when you're feeling stuck in a rut and like you just can't get out of it, and like how to make your way through that. And we cover a bunch more. And enjoy this video, guys.
Another piece that I have found really helpful when I've been struggling somewhat has been in the love energies. For me, I have, my beautiful partner, Mary Beth, but I hold for her, you could look at a partner. This is perhaps a choice, I made quite a while ago. You could look at a partner and you can notice where they're at. Say, oh well, that's where they are now. When I looked at my partner, what I look at is I look at the brighter or brightest parts of her, and focus on that, and expanding that, and talking about that, and pointing to, there's this, but this is what I can see, and this is the part that's great. So you bring attention into that part that they most want to expand, which she most wants to expand. But what it's done for me is it's harder for me to see those bright points in myself when I'm, going through periods of self-doubt, some concern about self-worth or getting things wrong or all that sort of thing. It's very hard to hold that energy and to simultaneously connect to this other energy. But when I work with her, I can see that in her. I have no difficulty connecting to that. But as I connect to that energy in her, guess what's happening to me? I'm being lifted up, aren't I? I'm connecting to that beautiful energy, which is harder, for me to connect to myself. So I look in myself, or suddenly I'm feeling, the more difficult side of things. So, really allowing that kind of space of love, allowing that, falling back on the warmth, even if I'm feeling, not good. I can still focus on that, the love for her and so forth. And sometimes it's got to sound a bit weak, really, to kind of rely on that. But what I've noticed is that as it's been happening over a period of time, that actually it helps things to release. It's been helping to wash away some of the stuff. It's helping me to dissolve some of the more difficult structures. And she comes into my space. The other thing is that she responds to that, because when I'm seeing that in her, she starts to feel it. She tunes into it and she feels it more. And so she comes in and she comes in, and it's like having a mini sun walk into the room, Peter. Sometimes it's kind of like, oh my God. Look, just walk into my room, really, and there's this beaming sense of clarity and goodwill from her. And when I respond like that, I say, oh my goodness, she's like, I'm saying, this is amazing. I can feel tangibly. Then she's, it helps to make it really real for her as well. So this is where it becomes like a virtuous self-reinforcing circle that I am finding very, very powerful. And if I rely only on my own energies, I get by, but it's going to be hard. When I got a beautiful partner I can tune into, I tell you, it makes it 10 times easier for me. I think people are a bit different in terms of, what helps them. But this love piece then becomes really a kind of tangible force. It's quite hard to define love. Actually, it's not just an extreme liking for somebody. There's a whole energy that feels a feel good flow of energy connected with with
There's an appreciation, but at the same time, there's like an upliftment to yourself, and it's just a mix of, yeah. You appreciate them, you see awesomeness, but it kind of warms you up in this way, and it's like yeah. But I really resonate with the way you explained it as well, because I, I I feel you, man. I feel you, but also, like, we're social animals. There's very few people that can really like self-empower, like, all alone, and just like we're social creatures, and we have these dynamic relationships. But when you said before the love thing, that how do we spread this into the world? Well, by appreciating another and highlighting and focusing on and expanding that best aspect of them, you uplift yourself and them, and that's how we do it. We also, in others, we notice the best. And when somebody comes at you and they just unsure about you, they just mistrust your intentions, you immediately get defensive, and immediately you actually become an untrustworthy person. Like, you're and that you everyone just expands whatever they focus on, even in another person. So we can just expand in other people, even somebody that's like seems like an absolute wretch. That's our like initial perspective. It's like, focus on their best bit, and like soon they'll that olive branch that you've extended might be like life to them. That might be just the breath that they're really just, yeah. And every little interaction, because we are social creatures, and we receive things through reflections through others as well. We can't just look in the mirror and just be ecstatic all the time, because we need a purpose as well, and we need to feel a part of something greater than ourselves in that way. And we're just, yeah.
So I do find that, as you say, I mean, the interrelation is really important, but it's having that energy flow. It's being able to, if there's no energy flowing, I could be comfortable when I'm sitting here, and I'm okay. But at the end of the day, there's something that's not quite satisfying about that. There needs to be an engagement. And there are periods when I'm, comfortable not having engagement. I might just sit down and do something that's a bit more mindless, watching a TV serial or something, which it can be quite good and can sometimes, be relaxing or whatever. So I mean, that's all fine too. But really, to engage with life is really fun, and to be able to summon energies and set them moving and make have things happen. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Makes me laugh that you're doing it, at 21, and I'm waking up now. I've hit retirement age. What you're going to be in 40 years is doesn't even bear thinking about, buddy.
Well, I'm seeing these things and I'm learning to play with them, but I'm also 21, so I'm actually just starting out as well. So I've got less experience playing with it as well. You've got a far more mature and like grounded ability to handle these things and have a consistency in your day to day. Mine is more irregular, and I'm still a kid, So some days it's like none of this is real. like these things that are like yearning and growing inside of me. Like it's a waking up, and it's a process. And the more time you have to deal with that situation, like, you get a stability in your awareness, and like there's a greater gravity to your perception than there is to mine, because you've had more time to perceive and more like experiences to interrelate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. experience can be useful as well. But I think there's a lot of things you're going to go straight to them, and you're going to break through things in a matter of a year or two that a couple of decades for me. It's but then again, consciousness itself has changed, and
That's why.
so the opportunity for me to expand very rapidly now is there. The opportunity to expand very rapidly now, it's there. And some of
when I was born, there had been progressions in consciousness that when you were born just weren't there, and it progresses at an exponential rate. So like things that were brand new, cutting edge 200 years ago, right now, that everyone just has it as like nothing. It's just automatic. And every child that's born now, they're born into that heritage that keeps expanding and growing. Yeah. And like I think you said a few weeks ago, like information and like knowledge and like research that you paid hundreds of thousands of dollars now. Like now there's people are just like waking up at a young age, and it's like just like happening, and it's just there because it's been learned and it's been processed by more individuals, and it's spreading more easily now.
I do think that this, I mean, I suppose I came from a time, and my consideration in looking around was always trying to find, the truth. So, but surely the Christians have got the truth. Oh no, the Hare Krishnas have got the real truth. No, it's the Rosicrucians. They're the one. No, actually, it's the Hindus. So everybody thinks they've got the truth of something, and to me, they've all become viewpoints. They've all become perceptions, and you can choose to live from one of those different perceptions. And then, of course, I was trying to choose, but which is the best one to live from? So, do your head in with that argument. Because what about all the ones you haven't tried? There's always there's hundreds of religions. Maybe you should have done the Native American.
And it's way more interesting if we're all playing with different perceptions, because then we bring different things to the table. Like something that's really interesting to me just doesn't interest you, but the benefits of my interests might really benefit you. Like somebody loves play like art and acting and all these expressive parts. Somebody else it's just not interesting to them, but they do love it. The product that is the movie and this epic, just like saga of just like humanness, and it's brilliant. Yeah. I remember like growing up in a Christian household and my dad telling me like there's one God and this is and I was my inner reaction was, well, if there's one God and there's only one true God, then the one true God would clearly have shown himself to or themselves to the whole planet, not just to the Christians. And perhaps the other religions just saw it through their own culture and expressed it through their own art and ways of communication, which came across in these multivariate ways that just seems totally different across the whole planet. But it's the same. If you listen to it, they all have different biases and different quirks that is of their culture and of their way of communicating, but they're all talking about the same thing because they're all different perceptions, but there is one reality, right? And yeah.
Yeah, and then it raises a great question. So how do you pick? If there's all these different things and so forth, what do you pick? And I think for instance, because I'm linked with Mary Beth, the things I do are different. If she wasn't here, I'd do different things. So a simple thing for me is an example of something I do. I used to have a ski shop for 10 years. I like skiing. She doesn't like skiing. I don't go skiing. But, she wasn't here. be spending time out on the slopes and, doing the stuff and mixing with a different group of people who love being up in the mountains, in that kind of space. So for me, it's phenomenal. You're sitting on top of a mountain, and everything's beautifully white, and there's a great little kind of cafe there serving some hot schnapps or something, and you're looking at the whole world and you're thinking about it, and it's starting to go a bit dark and so on. You're getting ready for the last rundown, and you just kind of, and there you are, and then you're off, and you've got the mountain to yourself, and it's you and nature, beautiful space actually. But do you know what? Do I miss that? No, not particularly. Because what I realised is I could do many different things. We could do many different things, where we could do separately, we could do things together. And what I'm starting to understand is it's not so much what I do, but it's more the kind of energies that I can bring into what I do. So if I've got this kind of a job and I'm, working with bits of paper, or I'm working with, invoicing or other things, I can apply some energies into it that can actually make that fun. And in my interrelation with other people, I can honor those relationships. So I provide an uplifting energy to the people I'm working with, regardless of what we're doing. Or I could be doing a completely different kind of job. But that can be equally enjoyable. And then you say, was there more merit in one than the other? That's kind of arbitrary. That's now assuming a judging hat. So I'm more interested in where I am and continuing to expand, continuing to grow, expanding my ability to love, to appreciate, to engage, to manifest, to nourish, to support.
Trying to change the space that you're coming from, not your surroundings, to try and change the way you feel. Which brings to mind something we spoke about like several videos back, which was like, well, what if you've got a really shitty job and you just hate your job? What do you do? And one of the answers was like, well, you could find another job. But the other answer is like, maybe if you change job, it's going to be as shitty because you're coming with yourself and you're carrying the energies you're carrying. And really, you can be doing loads of different things and having the same fun or like enjoyableness of the experience, but it's the energy you're carrying within yourself that is your perception and the way you experience that experience. It's not necessarily the physical reality of that experience that is the most important. It's the energy you're bringing. So if you're really just enjoying running with a particular energy, you could be skiing on the mountains, but you could be at the sea, just relaxing at the seaside, or doing loads of different activities. And like you could have just a job delivering pizza, and that could be the greatest fun in the world, because I remember it being that for me. Like I was just having such a great fun. I was just going to work, like you get to help out, you're part of this team, you're just like, you're joking, you're having fun. But for somebody else, they're like, oh, I've got this dead end job, and so it's our choice, the energy that we run with, which creates our experience, and that's really the most useful perception. But as for like which perception should we choose to run with, that's for us to play with and to see what we enjoy the most, but to understand that we do choose our perception, and that isn't like inflicted upon us, and we can change the energy that we are holding within ourselves to walk amidst the world and interact with it from that space. And from that space we share that energy that we bring, and then that creates a vibration and like a resonance, and then you're interacting with others resonating with you. And
I totally get that. And well, one of the pieces that I found quite difficult, even broadly holding that viewpoint, was still sometimes actually making the change in myself. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, I need to, so I'm like trying to bring some better energy. But what it is I'm at a certain energetic level which isn't flowing, and then from that level I'm trying to force something to be different, but I'm trying at that level, and it's kind of like no. And so how do you make this easy? How do how do you get out of that? And what I found is that instead of trying to do something different, I can just sort of go back and say, okay, well, is there a different way of doing this? And I can ask the question. And somehow for me, if I step back a bit, I literally feel my attention instead of being, on the problem. It's literally like stepping back, it's a bit lighter, a bit more awareness, 360-degree awareness, peripheral awareness, more relaxed. So how could I do, how could that work? And I don't even need to answer it here. I just need to have focused on the question, and then I'm listening for an answer. Or you could call it listening for an answer. You could equally well say you're now relaxing, allowing an idea to land. And something will respond and start to offer 2 or 3 ideas, or 5 or 10 ideas.
Is it just like an accepting and relaxing and not struggling with the situation, just accepting it? And then in that space of relaxation, you've opened up a space where other things can come in.
There is associated with it, I would say, an energy of curiosity. So I could be holding a space of curiosity, even if I'm, got a bit of something difficult going on. Another trick that I have used also, which I find helps here, is putting time into the equation. So I've lost your picture there, Peter, at the moment, just as a by-the-by.
I'm back.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, just picking up from where we were, since I seem to have that piece still sitting there, it's when you're at that level where things are not quite so comfortable, and you're trying now to get into a good space. This the piece that is my most successful one. Other people may have trips that are very, very successful as well, different ones. But it is to kind of sit back, but I almost sit back a bit from my physical head. So it's almost like me sitting back slightly from the body. So I'm not less focused at the front here, and more, and I'm kind of reaching back, and I'm really looking for, and I'm saying it's almost as though I'm casting around for a different set of ideas. Okay, so how could this change? And how could this change? And I asked the question as though there's an answer there, which I'm waiting for, where I'm expecting something to respond, where there's some floating ideas that can start to land, and I hold an expectation that they will land.
And then they do.
And then they do start to land. That's my experience, is they actually do start to land. And then part of that is it is that letting go, because if I get too intense, it's almost as though it restricts and tightens and the vibrational levels, the energetic levels. And it is that letting go allows something more expansive to come through. And another of my tricks as well, which I find extremely helpful, is that quite often when I want something, I'm kind of like wanting something immediately. It's kind of like, oh, I've got this and I want this other thing now. And putting a bit of time in the equation is helpful as well. So I put up the thought and say, okay, well, if it's not happening immediately, I say, okay, well, I can sit here for half an hour. I can sit here for a week. So I'm deliberately taking time out of the equation. And when I relax into the time, then I found, conversely to apparent logic, things can flow much more quickly. That's strange, that one, but that's the way.
That actually completely makes sense, because if you're expecting it to happen right now, you've put a constraint on when it must happen. So then you're not open to it happening as it will. And then when you're like, it can happen whenever though. I'd like the answer to this question, but I'm in no rush. And then it just, you're kind of, your attention can move elsewhere and you're relaxed and it can actually come in. Whereas if you're like, where is that answer right now? Like you're just, then that answer is most likely going to come to you. But then when you stop focusing on that so hard and you move off to do something else, and then you have that That's why a lot of people, like, they'll go exercising or something, and they'll get just so much inspiration during the exercise time because they're focusing on something else, which gives them this openness to then have the information or answers to questions that they've asked throughout their day-to-day life. And different people have different outlets where things can come through for them, like the shower. Yeah, I think this is something that everyone works with to some extent, but it's really intentionally working with it to be more efficient so that we can really, yeah.
I hear you. Actually, I can see that that having that relaxation about time is bringing forward another level of allowingness.
Yeah.
Which then it may be from another perspective. I mean, it seems to me that the ideas sort of come from somewhere and land, but maybe we have a whole seedbed of ideas, and we're really just allowing it to emerge within us, and maybe it's there all the time, but we just have to get into a space of attunement where we can see it or feel it.
Totally.
Maybe all these different ways of looking at it that are all valid.
The different ways of looking at it are different tools that make it work for us, because we can work with them and we understand that way of looking at things and we've understood it. But the way it actually works in totality is more complex but more simple than we can put into words. It's just that these words make it workable for us, because we use perceptions to interpret things. Yeah,
we do, and we also use contrast in those perceptions. So just being able to see from this viewpoint, and then from this viewpoint, and then from another viewpoint. Now you've got choices, haven't you? And then if you've got 3 viewpoints, you can start to mix different amounts of those viewpoints into the pie that you're baking, really. And then maybe you can introduce another factor into that. So contrast is really important. I mean, I think, when something just has the sameness and you're feeling the same, it's you don't necessarily feel bad, don't necessarily feel good. You just, you're okay and so on. And the contrast is beautiful because that starts to offer choices, and then you can start to choose that which you prefer and develop down that theme.
and how can you really enjoy the awesome things without having real hardcore pain to just really understand this is great because I've been in some shit. Yeah,
I think that's true, so I feel that that's relevant. And then there's another piece of thought that I'm holding to at the moment with regard to that, and that is that having an awareness of the pain and the discomfort doesn't mean to say I have to spend 50% of my time feeling good and 50% of my time feeling bad. Just being aware of the contrast can be enough to maintain me appreciating where I am. I've used old tricks like that for years. Actually, one of the ones that I used to use, and still use it for traveling. People complain about, these flights are taking 8 hours in a plane or something, to get somewhere. It's awful, for day hanging around airports and stuff like that. They're talking about that, and I said, well, here's my contrast. My great granddad used to open up trade between cotton trade between America and South America, between the United Kingdom and South America, and for him to actually get to South America, it used to take about 3 weeks on a steamer. And 3 weeks back. So just to go down and have a meeting, he had to pretty much take out 3 months of his life to go and have a few meetings. And I say now, I can get down there. It's just a day. One day of, that's not really that uncomfortable. I mean, I'm in a chair, I'm getting fed, I've got my electronics to play with. And bang, I'm there and I'm back. It's so it depends what you compare things are. And then that one makes me smile. So I feel pretty good, traveling. And I pull in a couple of other things because I decided that okay, I'm at 35,000 feet, right? Oh, well, I'm 35,000 feet closer to the angels, and and out of the thickness of human mentality, there's not a complaint to that, but there's an opportunity to hit some clean space, and I established some really good connections, and whether that's got scientific basis or whether it's just the way I'm holding it, I don't know, but I then get to experience it. So how you look at these things, how you choose to hold these things, really makes a difference as to what can be experienced.
The emotional guidance system comes to mind in the sense that which says that the better that somebody feels, the more true what they're thinking is, and the worse they feel, the less true what they think is. Like when you're thinking everything is shit, the whole world is fucked, I'm absolutely terrible, and that's it, and you just then immediately get this wave of just like utter despair and depression, and that's it. But then if you think like, although this situation isn't like, I'm not a king, I don't have a castle, but actually I am a king of this particular castle. I have a bedroom, I have the bed of like what royals used to have. Nobody in the whole planet's history has had a bed this comfortable. This was the elite situation. I have the library of the elites in my hand. I don't have to go to a giant hall to access these books and things. I have everything. I have the opportunity to fly to different countries, to create, to interact, to explore. I am a king of the universe. Like, everything is great. And suddenly this wave of like, oh shit, this is awesome comes over you. And it's like, you can, both of the reality, like the actual reality is the same, but the way that you perceive it can be like way more true, and which feels great. And because that's just, if it feels good, then there's a truth to it. There's something just intrinsically that lights up within you. And if what you're thinking is just, it's just disconnected to reality, it feels like absolute crap. And that's just despair. Yeah. And I think you really just, you're just really just tuning into those higher emotional states, and you're really just connecting to those and using that as your guidance to like, well, that's just better. That's just a perception that works way, way better for me. And like I'm acknowledging this pain that's there and these things, but playing over here is just, I could play down here as well, but it's just not. Yeah, I can see it, but and I think that's really working for you. Like it's really awesome that you're just experiencing life like that.
I'm noticing that I still forget. I mean, these last 2 days got better, but so I'm forgetting less. But I'd be having a harder day, and so then I just think, I go back to pushing through the day, trying to get stuff done, and so forth, instead of just like time out, just connect to something, connect to a space behind. The one I like to go for is a laughter one, You just connect to a laughter space, and immediately a whole bunch of energies that were sticking have just fallen off. It's they don't stick to you when you're kind of in a laugh. Now you're in that space. Now what can you add? Okay, so there's things I want to do, but now I've got to do this. No, not to a to-do list. I said, right, let's pull in an energy that's just going to line that list for me automatically without even really having to think about it. I'm just going to know what to do next. Let's line it up so that some people are going to call me, so these things are going to fall in alignment. And what am I going to do? Well, all I need to do is just go and have a great cup of coffee, or go get an orange juice and chill out for a few moments. talk to someone in nature, and when I come back, whew, it's going to be there. So you build this kind of vortex of thoughts. But you know, as I look back, I mean, I'm looking at the last 2 days, and I've done really good. Back, I've often not been very good at this at all, even in the last month. You know, there's a lot of times where I'm doggedly trying to solve instead of saying no. Yeah.
So just to play with that emotional thing that I was just talking about, so you could take, for example, the phrase, "Oh, but I often forget that this is true, that all of this is true." And so if you decided to go down with it into the thing, well, I often forget. And the reason I forget is that I'm just never going to get it because I just don't get it. I'm often forgetting. I'm an idiot. I'm terrible. I'm dumb. Or you can be like, I often forget. What a wonderful opportunity of contrast that the universe is consistently giving me so that I can rise up and consistently keep spiraling upwards. And I need to keep experiencing that contrast because I'm not going to know or understand, and I'll be disconnected with the reason why I'm rising all the way up and why everything is awesome. And that's so you can take any phrase, even if it like seems like, oh, I often forget, but it can go either way. And that it's that choice of either way. You're just consistently choosing up choices, and then it's just this spiral of like bang bang, and it's lovely. And then that's how you get out of it. You choose the more exciting choices, like in a row, and then it elevates, because it's like the place that we start off at. It's like there's 2 options above it and there's 2 options below it, and if you choose the one option below it, the next starting point is that phase. And so if you just choose loads like 10 down, you just keep choosing downs to get the next highest option might not even be a high. It's just like grasping. But if we keep choosing the most exciting options from the place that we are starting, we can escalate. And then, but there's a level to which our system keeps things in a not in a harmony, but in a state of like an average. There's an average to what we're doing all the time, and it will always want to come back down to that average. But if you're on average rising up, you pull your average up, and if you're on average rising down, you pull your average down, and then your actual average or your homeostasis, you actually can shift that level. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're changing our homeostasis, our usual set point, by consistently upwards pulling. That was really exciting.
Really well put. And even as we were saying, just having this conversation, I'm saying, oh, I forget. I could find myself saying, well, let's introduce a new thought here that I don't even have to remember, that the energy is just going to connect to me so that I automatically remember. And I could feel something kind of rewiring a bit, where a part that I've been trying to do with memory, for instance, I can actually stop worrying about memory and start wiring in something that actually means I don't even have to remember, because it presents to me the thought I want when I want it, when I need it. So feeding those kind of seeds, because all of these seeds are available to us, but it's which one are you going to water? And choosing to water those thoughts, those ideas that are creative of experience we want to have. It's very fun, actually.
It's in a way the meaning of life. That's why it satisfies us, like creating. And
one of the considerations I've been having as well, in this space, Peter, has to do with aging. Now, I was connecting up with latest technology, because I very much enjoy technology as well as spirituality, although really to me, technology is spirituality expressed, because I mean it's all been created from whatever we are, let's say, whether you call that spirituality or consciousness or God or whatever we are. But the process of aging there, as I've seen these approaches, it's a beautiful approach which for curing a whole bunch of cancers is, instead of aiming at something that targets the cancer, to recognize which particular T cell was responsible for addressing that part of the body. Perhaps not T cell, really, it's more like a stem cell. There are a lot of stem cells that are relevant in our body when we're young, but they tend to become a bit dormant, as it's almost like they've got a bit sleepy as we get a bit older. And so this particular approach has been to wake up stem cells in the particular and precise area where there's, cancerous issue. And then the body does its own thing, takes over and rebuilt itself, because it has all the know-how of how to do that. It built it in the first place. And the fact that things are no longer being built quite right doesn't mean to say the body doesn't have that capability. It's there, it's just waking it up. So I've been really interested to notice these highly specialized technologies which can actually just wake up stem cells, say, hey guys, there's a job to do here. And then bang, there goes a cancer. But also the idea of considering looking at aging and saying, well, is aging a disease? I mean, we think, oh, well, what do you mean? Aging's just aging. And then they say, oh, well, look up the definition of a disease. And a definition of a disease, anyway, that was pointed to in this discussion, maybe others, is that something that is happening to less than 50% of the population. So in other words, it's not something you have to have. It's happening to more than 50%, then it's called natural, you see, and then it's not a disease. So maybe we've all just got used to, bought into the idea of this disease for a long time, so we've been going along with it. So what happens when you start to think of, is that really then necessary? How does the body start to reprogram itself and start to respond to that? And it was just interesting seeing the techniques that have been used in order to induce reverse aging in mice. So what I'm seeing now is successful reverse aging in mice. That's big implications for the human race. But what it's also set me thinking, and I've noticed within myself, is, well, hang on a moment. Do I need some kind of, drug injection or something to stir something up? Or can I self-induce something that influences my own aging? And to me, I've certainly managed my physiology, which had become, where walking, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I was having difficulty walking. And my knees weren't working very well, and other things and so forth. And that's reversed. That's been steadily reversed. So I'm now more physically able, particularly today, because I ended up shifting some furniture out of one room at a certain level, humping all this stuff. And Mary Beth was commenting, she said, oh, I just don't have your strength. And, oh, yeah. You do not today. My body's doing really good. It was really up for it. And I thought, this is cool. So that's another whole piece. It's not a very relevant question to you now at the moment, but that's another interesting piece for us to hold and invite different perspectives of aging and what causes aging and so forth. And I think with this resurgence of energies connecting to new, inspiring and uplifting energies, you can also weave into that the idea of rejuvenating energies as well. They're there. So it becomes very much a case of, baking your own cake, really, and what ingredients are you going to invite into it. And perhaps inviting a set of ingredients that harmonically, work together and provide an upward spiral.
On aging, I'm in two minds. One mind is that aging is natural and it's like part of the cycles of life, day and night, life and death, and this is the natural cycle. But the other part, the other perspective that I also feel is what we were talking about, being like how we can go up on this spectrum, and actually we're learning these tools at the moment and we're playing with them, but really we're just like finding these things out. So what is the upper limit of the potential of these? We have no idea. And theoretically, perhaps humans can live for an infinite period of time, and death doesn't death can be completely optional at the highest, most absolute level. But this is just like a theoretical level from our perspective. And to what extent are we at the moment unable to prolong our lives because we live all around loads of people who believe that we die at a certain time, and everybody believes in this paradigm of we live up to about 100 years, and then this belief is like deeply ingrained into the consciousness of this civilization. So it's almost like a boundary that you can't transcend. That you can within certain boundaries like live longer and things, but until the consciousness of the whole planet opens up to higher like degrees of age like living, you could theoretically live 1,000 years, but we don't even know the upper bounds of our system and of our potential and what we could do with this system. Like there's, for example, the average person doesn't even know how to breathe. Imagine if one person just breathed correctly, like every aspect of your system, like what we were talking about earlier, that there's different things that when you relax them, you open up. I've heard from a channeler before that they were told in channeling that whilst they are channeling and in a channeling state, they don't actually age. They're in a timeless time. They're not actually aging while they're channeling. And why couldn't we be permanently in a pure channeled state? But what are the upper boundaries to that? Because it's like you can relax one thing. How many things are we not relaxing that we don't even know need relaxing? How many things are we relaxing now so that future generations can relax other aspects more subtle and more subtle? And then how many, what's the upper limits of this? We don't know. The potential is quite literally limitless, and we just don't know the upper boundaries to aging and what really is going on with it, and how we can actually, I think there's a lot there that we just have no idea about.
I think that aging can start to change. It's going to start to change spontaneously in some people. So we may see people really, routinely going through 100, and so I can see that change coming. I mean, from another perspective, the idea of living a long time, meaning that, can I be effectively immortal, and wouldn't that be wonderful? I think is sometimes tied to the limitation of only seeing oneself potentially existing as a human being. And they're tied with the idea that when you come out of the body that, there's not something better. But supposing the first thing that happens when you come out of the body is you think, oh, goodness gracious, I'm pleased that's over. And you've got this other guy hanging on to this thing. I've got to live because I've got to live for 1,000 years because otherwise I'm dead. Excuse me. You really want to. You don't want to just kind of bind yourself into something for fear, that there's nothing better. And because my sense is, we come down into having experiences and connect into having this experience within this vehicle, but this doesn't represent who or what we are. It's something we're playing through and having experience through. So we're experiencing as, but the consciousness or the energy somehow that's capable of adopting such a vehicle as a human body, that could be capable of other things and vaster things. And so I think it's a little bit like when you've done something in life, that's great. But then sometimes there comes a point where you've really done it a lot, and you just feel ready to move on. You say, well, I did my schooling or whatever, and I don't know, but do you know what? I'm looking forward to getting out of that schooling and to applying into something else. Or, I did this particular job for a period of time. And initially I grew and it was exciting, but you know what? Now it's kind of, I'm finding it's a bit limiting, it's restricting, it doesn't give, I'm not enthused, whereas I could really like to explore another capability, doing something different. And we don't see beyond the human body for the most part from within a human body. There are some ideas, and there are certainly some people that have perceptions, but there's quite a lot of us also that don't. But just because they don't see something there doesn't mean therefore you've got to hold on to what you've got indefinitely. So I think that the two sides of things. Firstly, if you have ideas flowing through you that are exciting, fantastic, then you want to carry on playing. Why wouldn't you? If you are just naturally feeling that, well, I've been on this planet a long time, and do you know what? Maybe I'm ready for something completely different, some completely different thing. I think at that point, then it's appropriate to be withdrawing and letting go. And I think perhaps the more significant piece that I see coming is that we're going to be able to embrace choice in this. So you do get to choose more consciously. I think at a deeper level, there's something that's choosing. There's some part of us that we've preset, which said, "Oh, well, this isn't really working out. If this part has stopped growing and so forth, then I'm going to be pulling the plug, even though this part might not agree with that." So I think there's probably something in place there. But to be more engaged in some of those conscious choices would be fun. Or doing those choices consciously would be fun, and it's coming. I feel like that's coming. Provided we can all get past coronavirus.
These possibilities are expanding.
Yeah. This coronavirus is a big issue, isn't it, at the minute? My goodness. Lots of people talking about it, and it does seem to me it's like flu. It gets around. It's probably going to influence a few of us. But hey, flu comes around, and there's it claims lives, but all sorts of things claim lives. So I think we will. The bulk of us, fortunately, will live through that. Hopefully, I'll be one of them. Well, I could be a bit more determined about that. No coronavirus is taking me out. I'm going to take those bugs out, man. They come near me. There we are.
Today's been a really, really cool conversation.